All right, let's just jump right into it. So our speaker today is Kenny Thompson. So Kenny Thompson, an experiencer from northern Minnesota, will review his book Encounter at Hill City. Kenny is an engaged storyteller. He'll share his abduction experience that occurred in 2017. The story includes some familiar abduction components. However, there are parts of his story that are absolutely horrifying. Most notable was that he and his family felt they were gone for months, only to discover once they were returned to home that the weather was seasonable and familiar. So atypical for the seasonal changes in Minnesota. What seemed like 6 months was probably only a few hours. However, Kenny noted that his beard had fully grown. Very strange. His book's available on Amazon.com. You'll be able to hear about that. And I'm sure because Roger Cavandia, he's got to hear that and kind of resonate with that the whole time thing and things being gone. So that's the introduction. But for those of you who have been around Minnesota MUFON for a long time, you know Kenny. But if you haven't been around Minnesota MUFON very long, Kenny's been a member of our chapter for years, and he was a regular at our meetings. He showed up all the time. I've known Kenny for quite a while. Um, Kenny's always just been a very friendly, honest, genuine, sincere guy. Very humble and just very true. I mean, when he talks, he's really speaking from his heart. It's what is real for him. So he's just been a great guy. I've loved knowing him. He's been great to have in the chapter. He's just been a great guy to be around. He's always got great stuff to talk about. So um, I'm gonna zip it and I'm gonna let you hear from Kenny Thompson. Kenny, take it away.
All right. Well, I got to first say thank you, Tom, for all that. That's true. We're good buds, me and you. You know that. I guess I might as well get this first out of the way. My book, might as well show that off. I finally got that done. You know, it took me forever to finally finish. But yeah, I guess I might as well just start from the beginning, I guess, and go from there. Basically, uh, like you said, 2017, me and my family had to do your normal grocery run, you know what I mean, to town and get your local staples. Well, we go to Hill City, which is a town 7 miles north of us where we used to live in the country. So we get up to Hill City, and when we get up to Hill City, we had a van that we were all in. So, because I had four kids and then me and the wife, so it was six of us. So we all get out of the van, we get our staples, your eggs, your milk, all that kind of stuff. Grabbed all that, and then we all sudden proceeded back out to the van. And when we got back to our van, everybody got in the van, and I just by luck had looked up into the sky because I always do watch the skies anyways. But I looked up into the sky, and when I did, I seen this weird cloud that I've never seen before in my whole life. It was gold colored. So basically, we get back into the car, and as we get into the car, I look up into the sky and I just see this cloud that was in the form of an arm holding Thor's hammer, and it was gold colored. It just stood out from all the other clouds because of course all the other clouds are blue, and this one was gold, and it literally three-dimensionally looked like an arm up in the air holding Thor's hammer. So the next thing you know, I point out that to my kids. I said, and my wife, I said, look up there. Do you guys see that like Thor's cloud hammer looking thing up there? And they all said, yeah. And just as we all agreed and looked at it, this UFO comes out to the right hand side, and I'll never forget it. Highly chrome looking UFO comes out to the left hand side, and as it's sitting out there, I point up to it, and just as I point up to it, it goes pew right behind that cloud and out to the left hand side. So here we are. I point at it again on the left hand side, and just as I point out to the left hand side, it again it hides behind the cloud and then comes out on the right hand side. So the next thing you know, for the next like 3 4 minutes, we're playing like pointing tag with this thing like tennis as it goes bing 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 behind the clouds. So next thing you know, all of a sudden from nowhere, my wife slams her hand down on the dash of the car, and I mean slams it down, and she goes, "This is it. We're not playing with the UFO no more. We're going home." So I said, "Okay, hey, let's go." So the next thing you know, we take a left out of the grocery uh, store and onto 169, and just as soon as we take that left and get onto 169, I never took my eyes off that UFO, not for 1 second. And it all of a sudden starts, as soon as we got to the edge of town, it starts coming down to the behind our car, just about 40 feet above our car, about 45-degree angle behind us. and is now chasing us all the way home for 7 miles. And it got my kids scared. It got my wife all scared, and she starts stepping on the gas. We're literally going over 100 miles per hour, which I've never done before in my life, but we're going over 100 miles per hour and not losing the UFO, of course. It's right behind our car, just like normal. And then we get to our turnoff, and it's a 1 mile turnoff on a dirt road. Well, she turns on that dirt road, and as soon as she turns on that dirt road, she goes like 80 miles per hour down this dirt road. I've never been down that dirt road that fast. And we're just boom, 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 going over up and down on the ruts that are on the road. And so finally she pulls off at the mailbox and turns up into our driveway. Well, when she turned up into our driveway, we for some reason thought that we lost the UFO. It was the weirdest thought because I didn't see it no more. It was all of a sudden not following us. So we stop in front of the house, and just as we were all about ready to get out of the car, the UFO comes over our two front tallest trees and comes vertical down right on top of our windshield. And you literally hear the UFO when it touches our windshield, it goes chink. And so here it is. The UFO now is pushing down on our car. Ting, 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 ting. You can hear the shocks in our car just getting pushed down. And all of a sudden, it puts out this blinding white light. And this light was so intense. It was the weirdest light, too, that I've ever seen because it had like gold diamonds floating around in it. It was the weirdest, coolest thing. And so all of a sudden, I put my arm up to block out the light because I couldn't really see what the UFO looked like. And as soon as I put my arm up to block out the light, time stopped. I could not move. I was frozen in my seat. All I could do was move my eyeballs. And then I all of a sudden noticed as I'm looking back at my kids that we all became like transparent. That light was so intense I could see right through the car, right through the seats, back to my kids. But I couldn't move no more. And then all of a sudden, the weirdest thing is, bink, in a second, I am now in my living room, defying gravity, with this tractor beam light coming out from that UFO now, and it's right over my deck. And it's got us like in a tractor beam holding us there. We're all floating up in the air doing like this Michael Jackson video, I remember, where he did this fight at 45-degree angle leaning out thing. And that's how we were all up in the air. And then all of a sudden, that UFO starts to glow like gold. It goes boom, 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 and it blasts away up into the heavens. And as soon as it did that, we all hit the floor. It was like we all hit the floor, and I couldn't hardly move. We were all like really weak. And I get back up. I finally stand up and I say to myself, I say to everybody, oh my God, what happened? And all of a sudden, everybody in my family starts freaking out. Now, this is the weird thing that nobody knew about was we had been abducted in those couple seconds from where we were in the one car to the other. And the only way we knew that was the nightmares that were to come, that we were abducted. But here I got to stay up with the story. We're staying in the living room and we get up, and I all of a sudden say to everybody, oh my God, what happened? And just as I say that, my whole family gets incredibly violent towards me. They're like, who are you? Get out of our house, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just violent with me for like minutes. And I'm standing there going, what's going on? What's going on? And it's like they don't recognize me. And so the next second, I said, what is your problem? I'm your father. And just as I say that to them, they stop attacking me. And they all of a sudden look at me and they go, Dad? And all of a sudden I go, why don't you recognize me? And just as I say that to them, they all point downwards. And I'm like, what? What are you pointing downwards for? And just as soon as I look, I finally realize that I have a beard that goes down to my chest. And I've never had a beard in my whole life. I've been a military man, close shaven my whole life. And here I am, I all of a sudden have a beard down to my chest. And then I'm like, what the heck just happened? I go run into the bathroom and I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at myself like I'm a hillbilly. I never had that much facial hair in my life. So all of a sudden, I finally understand why my family ain't recognizing me. And then all of a sudden, the sheer horror sets in that what happened? What just happened in that blink of an eye? Because literally, I was in the car, blink, I was in my living room. I didn't realize that you guys at MUFON actually were the ones. Well, I better go with that too. you guys at MUFON were the ones that finally told me that I was probably taken for about 6 months because of the length of the growth of the hair to reach my chest. They did some estimate and they had told me that I was at least taken for 6 months. Our whole family was taken for at least 6 months. So then to go back to the story, um, basically my wife comes up with this wonderful story because she knew me. I'm a kind of a talker, as Tom knows, and everybody knows I like to talk a good story. Well, my wife at that time knew that about me, and so she knew that I had friends all around town and stuff like that. She was scared that I would tell them about the story of what just happened about us getting abducted. So she comes up with the story saying, okay, this is what we're going to do as a family. If anybody asks us what happened, we're going to just tell them all that we had a bad nightmare. I still laugh at this because it's like, I told her, are you crazy? Who's going to ever believe that all of us at the same night, at the same time, had the same nightmare about getting abducted? And so she goes, well, listen, you either agree with this story or you can leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're going to throw away 20 years of marriage over this because I won't agree with your stupid story? And she goes, well, listen, that we don't want this to get out. And I'm like, well, I don't want it to get out either, but I'm not going to tell a lie. I'm ex-military. I don't lie. And so she goes, okay, fine, then you can leave. So I did. I went down to the local bar that's only a mile down the road from me. It's called the Corner Club. I met up there with a whole bunch of my friends. And the next thing you know, I told one of my good close friends what happened. And he looked at me and he goes, Ken, you've never lied to me once, so I'm going to have to believe you're telling me the truth. And so I said, you're not going to believe it. And so when I got done telling him, he goes, why don't you just stay at my place? And then I said, well, I don't know, because he was farther away from town. And then all of a sudden I had these two other friends and they said, hey, why don't you stay at our place? So they were not even a mile away from my home. So I said, sure, Bob and Pat. So I stayed at their place. And when I was at their place, I thought all this horror was over with, but it wasn't, because they came back and abducted me again. One night I was sitting there in the house, went to bed like normal, and I never have slept on my back ever. Not a day in my life have I ever slept on my back. I'm a side sleeper. So here I am, all of a sudden I wake up and I'm on my back. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And just as I sit up, I look out the window and I see that exact same UFO just sitting outside my window. And it did the same thing. Boom, 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 blasted away again. And so I'm sitting there looking out the window at it as it blasted away. I sit up, and just as I sit up, my left hand goes to the inside of my right hand on my arm, and I'm not in control of it. It just starts itching the right hand inside of my arm, right by the muscle. So basically, here I am again. I sat up and it started itching the inside of my arm, and I was not in control of my left hand. It just automatically went over there and started itching. It kept on itching for literally 4 to 5 minutes. Now, after about 4 to 5 minutes goes by, I finally start, it gets raw. It's just raw. And I can't, I'm starting to say, stop, stop, stop. I start yelling, stop. And when I did, all of a sudden my hand jumps up, my left hand jumps up, and it's like it's looking at me. And I said, stop. And it all of a sudden drops, like I'm back in control of it. So then all of a sudden I had to look at what it was itching. And just as I finally look on my bicep to see what it was itching, it was three dots there, about an inch apart from each one of them in a triangular formation, three dots, and they were raw. It looked like I just got injected by a huge hypodermic syringe in each one of them. And just as I'm watching, I start to watch them heal. I've never seen myself instantaneously heal. The top one, matter of fact, it just closed right up right in front of me. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then, like I said, that's pretty much where I left. All right, should I just go off where I left off?
Yeah, if you know where you dropped off, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Right at the end.
It's right at the end anyways.
Okay.
Basically what had happened to me was, um, after I had kind of gone on my temporary separation from my wife, I met my buddies at the bar. When I met them at the bar, one of them, a couple that I knew as a good friend, they allowed me to stay at their home. So I went to their home, which is just a mile down the road. And when I was at their place, I've never slept on my back ever. But all of a sudden, this one weird night, I wake up on my back. Now, as soon as I did, I, of course, sat up. And when I sat up, I looked outside the window, and there goes the same UFO that had taken us, is sitting now outside the window. So when it was sitting outside the window, it just goes, pew, blasts off again, took off. And all of a sudden, my left arm, for some reason, just was taken over by something else, not me. And it goes to the inside of my right arm, right by the muscle, and starts just itching, scratching. And now the scratching goes on for almost 2, 3, 4 minutes, and it's getting just raw. I mean, my arms get raw. So I start saying, ow, ow, stop, stop, stop. And it all of a sudden looks at me. And I said, stop. And then it drops. And I was like, okay, so now I'm back in control. And so all of a sudden I looked to the inside of my arm at what it was scratching. And I have 3 now hypodermic holes about an inch apart in a triangle formation, these dots. And they're real big. I mean, like you really got stabbed by a huge hypodermic. It wasn't small. They were like big. And so all of a sudden, right in front of my eyes, I start to watch them heal. I mean, they all of a sudden just start to close up and heal right before my eyes. And so as I'm watching this, I think to myself, oh my God, they got me again. So the next thing you know, I moved down to the cities. And when I moved down to the cities, I found MUFON. One of my friends had told me about MUFON. So I found MUFON. I talked to Bill. He took down my whole thing about my abduction. And then I went to MUFON. And I went to MUFON, first day there, I come there to MUFON. And when I come to MUFON, she puts out her hands way from across from the room and says, you come here. And so all of a sudden I said, okay, sure. So I come there and she puts her hands down and she says, put your hands over mine. And so okay. So I put my hands over hers. And just as I do that, she goes, oh my gosh, you're a strong psychic. And I go, what? And then she goes, yeah, you're a strong psychic. You're like an empath. And I said, well, that makes sense. I love all the animals on the earth. And she goes, you're an empath. So then when she tells me this, she goes, and by the way, that's the reason you got abducted. And I go, what? She goes, yeah, the UFOs, when they fly over, they have a sensor that is looking for people that have the gift. And that's one of the reasons you got your whole family abducted. So that's when I joined MUFON, of course, and went with you guys, hung out all this time. That's how I know y'all.
Yep, yep. Yeah, did you have more stories that you wanted to share, or?
Oh, I got stuff about Bigfoot if you wanted.
Yeah, because
I'm writing, yeah, I'm writing a new book. My new book is called The Beast and the Bird.
Because
Yep.
we got like an hour plus left of time, so.
Oh, are you serious? Well, then I might as well tell you about all this.
Well, yeah, we got a lot of time. We got till we try to shut down around 5 o'clock, so we got some time for sure.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, basically, the how that happened was same place. I was living at the same property where we got abducted from. But one night, my wife, she goes, could you go out? Oh, what did I just do? Okay. She goes, can you go out to the truck and grab my books? Now, she was going at the time, she was going to be an RN. So she was going to school to be an RN. So I go, sure, I'll go grab your books. So I had this huge German Shepherd, and I mean huge. She was a female German Shepherd. She was just gigantic. And I always took her anywhere for protection because she's a big girl. And everybody knows, German Shepherds are pretty good defensive dog. So I take her out with me, and as soon as we get outside, I walk down the country driveway. And if you know how long a driveway is, those country ones are like half a block long at least, you know what I mean? So I walk down my country driveway and I get down to the truck. And as soon as I get to the truck, I just open up the door like normal. And as soon as I open up the door, I grab the book. Now, when I grab the books, and I mean, as soon as I grab the books, I hear this. And as soon as that sound comes out, my German Shepherd left me. And oh my God, she has never left my side. She's protected me all the time. She bolted. And so I'm thinking at the same time, I should probably run too. So I grab the books, I just throw them back in the truck. I didn't even shut the door. I just ran for dear life. I'm running, and I get all of a sudden right to the point about jumping on the front of my deck. And for some reason, something in me makes me do this weird jump where I'm actually facing out where that growl came from. So I do this weird whoop, whoop, and I land on the deck, the top of the steps. And I'm standing there just kind of catching my balance. And as soon as I catch my balance, I'm looking out there to my field, and oh my good Lord, it was standing alongside my trees, 14, 15, 16 foot tall, maybe. And I'm not kidding, just a giant. It was wider than a barn door. I mean, it was just, and it looked like the biggest ape I've ever seen in my life. It actually had a pointy kind of head. It was, and I mean, the head was ginormous. And it, at this time, as soon as I recognize it, it roars at me personally. It roars right at me. I mean, just you. And so I stand here and I all of a sudden start to tremble. I'm ex-military, Desert Storm. It takes a lot to get me scared. I was trembling. When it roared at me, I just started shaking like a leaf. So next thing you know, my dog, she starts scratching at the door behind me, just wanting to go in the house. Me, for some reason, I just got brave and I wanted to, I've never seen a Bigfoot before, so I just wanted to kind of enjoy the experience as much as I could. Thank God that thing was out in the field, because if it was closer, I would have ran in the house, you know. But it was out in the field just roaring. You know, as I'm looking at it, the next thing you know, it starts to get into this dance. Now, everybody usually laughs at this point. They can't understand it, but it was doing its legs like this, jumping up and down, doing this dance. It looked like a dance, left and right. It was just boom, 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 boom. So the next thing you know, I'm watching it, and I'm like, just as soon as I perplex, like, what are you doing? Boom, 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 boom. These earthquake like vibrations knocked me. I've never felt an earthquake in my life, so it felt like an earthquake. Next thing you know, it drops me to the ground, and I'm like, what the hell? I grab onto my railings on my deck and start to pull myself back up. And as soon as I stand back up, it roars again, and I could see its canines just at me. And so all of a sudden, it turns and it goes to the left. It turns and goes to the left all of a sudden, and it's just walking like this. And I'm like, what is it? Boom! 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 It knocked me back down again. So I'm like, what the hell? And just as soon as it walks over there, it goes quiet. And then all of a sudden I start hearing these branches breaking. I've never heard a branch break like this in my whole life. I mean, it was like boom. It just was like, yeah, boom. It sounded like a shotgun going off every time the branch broke. It was just the most scariest sound I've ever heard in my life. And just while I'm hearing that noise, I start hearing two other noises. Snap, snap. Sounds like little twigs getting broke. And then all of a sudden in my mind, I start to think, oh my God, that's the female over there with her two babies, because I could hear separate snaps at the same time. So I'm figuring there's two other babies. She had two babies, because the next thing you know, all of a sudden they go dead quiet. They go just dead quiet. And that's almost what scared me more. I turned around and ran in the house after that. I couldn't handle no more. So that was my Bigfoot story. And that's the beast part of the book. Now, the second part of the book is called The Beast and the Bird. The bird is what happened to us one day on the same property. That's where I get all my stories from, I guess. Same property. Um, One day I had goats and chickens and all that, you know, on my farm. So one day we go outside, and when I was outside, um, we just hung out with all the goats, like petting them. You know, I had four kids, like I said. We were all just petting them and hanging out with the goats and feeding them grass and all that kind of stuff. Just normal stuff that you would do with them. And then all of a sudden, they all of a sudden bolt. They just leave us. We were in the middle of our yard, and they just bolt to undercover underneath all the trees and everything. And when they disappeared like that, we were like, what's going on? And just as we perplexed what's going on, the sun was perfectly hanging just like at a 12 o'clock above us, shining down directly on top of us. And when it was shining down, all of a sudden this shadow comes in from nowhere, and this shadow is it covers the sun, literally blocks out the sun, and it's in the shape of a bird. And I'm like, what the hell is that shadow? And I look up, and oh my good Lord, I've never seen a bird ever in my life. I've seen tons of eagles. We had eagles around our property all the time. They look like little hummingbirds compared to this bird. This bird looked like an aircraft carrier flying above home. I mean, it was just so big. I said it at least had a 50-foot wingspan. That was me being nice. It might have been a little bit bigger. It was big. So the next thing you know, I look up and I'm seeing this bird just do a big old circle around, and it's just circling us. Me and the goats and the chickens, it's just circling us all. So I start watching it and I'm like, oh my God, me and the kids, I tell the kids, get with the goats, get underneath shelter, because I think I finally understood why the goats went underneath the trees and everything. We should probably be too. So we all get underneath the trees and we're watching this bird just keep circling, circling. And all of a sudden, one of our goats, we call it a special goat. Let's say it was autistic or whatever. It was not like the other goats. It could just fall into a little hole and get trapped and not even figure its way out. We had to save it all the time out of stupid stuff. It was a special goat. And it was kind of special to us too, because it was like that. So the next thing you know, the goat, the special goat, autistic goat, starts to walk out into the middle of the yard, right in the middle of the opening. And we're all like, get over here. We start yelling. It don't know. It's a goat. It walks right in the middle of the yard. And as soon as it does, that bird swoops around and swoops right down in the middle of the yard and picks up the goat. The goat's just flying off now with the Thunderbird. And all of a sudden, my kids, they freak out because it was their favorite goat. Dad, get your goat, get your goat. So I automatically responded. Responded and took off for the house. I run inside. I unlocked the box, because it was in a gun case. I'm unlocked in a panic, and I finally get the gun. And as soon as I get the gun, I run back out. I get to my kitchen, and my son's up on the deck going through the doorway going, Dad, throw it in. And I thought that was the most crazy thing. I put on the safety and I just, okay, boom. And I've never done that in my life. I threw it like a Chinese star. It was like, believe it or not, he caught it like it was something in the movies. He just click, he caught it, grabbed it, took off the safety and aimed up and boom, 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 boom. It was like the fourth or fifth shot. He actually hit the damn bird. And all of a sudden, the goat from nowhere, yeah, boom, hits the ground and bounces right in front of us all. And we were like, oh my God, it just dropped the goat. So all of a sudden, that bird swings around again in a nice big circle. And this is where I got the most scariest picture of it, because it comes just barely roof height, right over my roof. And it comes right over me, and it's looking down at me with this big white oval eye with a black part at the bottom. Look, I could tell it was looking right at me. And so I'm like, oh my God. And it had these huge claws. I mean, it had these claws like I've never seen, these big fingers, man. As it pulled over me, it was flying over me. And as it did, I kept yelling, kids, get underneath the cover. And they stayed under cover. And it just all of a sudden just swung around. My son was about to shoot it again. It swung around and it flew off. And we should have just let it have the damn goat, because that goat died that day. But that's my Bigfoot story and my Thunderbird story. Beast and the Bird. That's what my new book's gonna be called.
Yeah, I got a question. I'm gonna open it up to everybody for
Open up.
questions in a second, but I want to ask a question first. So the abduction story, the whole beard grew. Do you have any recollection of what happened during all that time, or does your family have any recollection of what happened when you were gone, or no?
Only the nightmares. That's what actually let me know what happened, was the nightmares. Right that day, I went to night, had a sleep and just horrible nightmares of being on board. There's one part I didn't tell you about in the book. I just forgot. I'm so sorry. The one part they had us on, out of my dreams, mind you. They had me on a slab. You know how you would think they have you, right? And they had me on a slab, and the alien walks right by me, right? And it had these jagged teeth. I should show you actually probably from the book. You probably get a better idea of what I'm talking about. I hope you can see it even. Can you even see that picture?
It's kind of dark. It's in the shadow. Oh, I'm kind of seeing a little bit. Yep. Oh, yeah, yeah. That I can see.
That's the picture what they look like. They
Mm.
had cat eyes. They had razor sharp triangular teeth. It was scary as hell when it opened its mouth because it looked like it could just bite a hand off. You know what I mean? It was scary. It had a forked tongue too that it would put out every now and then, just like, you know. But the craziest thing about him is when he walked by me, I got so scared, I was already passed out. That's what it felt like. But what am I trying to tell him right now? Oh, I know. He walks right by me, right? And just as soon as he gets down about mid size of me, about right by my waist, he jumps up on top of me. And as he jumps up on top of me, he has this nose that came out of his face. And it was about I'm not 3 foot long. It looked like it was from where he was standing. He brought it all the way down to my mouth. It was a huge nose. And it was pointy. It came out black. It was black. It came out of his face black, and it had a point on the end of it, a real fine point it came down to. And all of a sudden, it starts mucus starts coming right down the nose at me, right down that whole long nose. And it was a ton. I mean, it was like had a faucet on over me. And it starts. I started suffocating. I could feel it literally in my nose and my mouth at the same time. This mucus coming out of his nose. And I'm like, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to die. I honestly felt like he was suffocating me. I was going to die. And the next thing, this primal thought comes into my head. All of a sudden, in the name of Jesus, I have this thought come up. And so I all of a sudden scream out, in the name of Jesus, get off me. And just as I say that, it jumps all the way over to this panel, this electronic panel thing, jumps all the way over there, and it's holding its side. And it's like looking like I just stabbed him in the side. It's like, and so I was like, oh, geez, in the name of Jesus, I guess really does have some power. And just as he looks at me all mad, like I heard him, he hits his button, and that stuff gassed me out, knocked me out, and then I wake up with my family in this cell. Now that's another thing I didn't say. The cell that they had us in, we were all naked. Now that was real true torture to be in this weird ceramic cell. It looked like, honestly, it looked like the inside of the UFO. It had the exact same shape of like the UFO almost. It had this little ledge that we all sat over, and they had us in these chrome stirrups. They had us in these chrome stirrups. They held our arms up, and then they had this green. Green. It reminded me of Superman. Superman with what, kryptonite was it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
It had green neon glowing. It looked like kryptonite, a big, about a foot long beam that went over our biceps, and we were held there in like you couldn't move. You were just held there like that, and this green beam was zapping your strength. I could feel it. It just totally, you had no energy. It just was zapping our strength, and that's how we were kept for 6 months in torture, you'd call it, because they had us in the cell. They'd only take us out to do experiments on us. I remember one time they that's how I knew she was right. Was her name Vicky again, our psychic? She was right, because I remember they had me at one time on the slab again, and they were doing this scan over my head from head to toe. They had this light wand thing, and they went from my feet all the way up to my head, and they stopped when they first started. They stopped at my midsection, at my belly, and they all of a sudden looked at me and they go like this, like, no good. And that's some pretty good technology, because my whole life I've had bad internal bowel problems right from the military. When I was in the military, they had found out that I had bad bowel problems. So the weird thing is that they picked that up with their scan, and then the next thing you know, they come up to my head, and when they're up to my head, it goes, their whole thing, I could see it over there in their console was going off, and it showed this little white light inside my scalp, inside my brain, I should say. That's where it was. Inside my brain, they showed this little white, I could see it on their scanner over there, this little white light, and it kept setting off their alarms. And that's, I guess, what they wanted, because I could tell they were mostly concerned with what they found in my head. So now I do believe I got everything in there that was in the book.
Cool.
Hey, I should read the back of the book, because it really has a good amount to say about the book since we got time. It
Sure.
goes, Kenneth Thompson's gripping memoir, Encounter at Hill City, delves into harrowing experience of his family's abduction by extraterrestrial beings. Set in the tranquil town of Hill City, the Thompsons' peaceful existence is shattered when they are unexpectedly taken aboard a mysterious spacecraft. As Kenneth recounts their ordeal, readers are taken on a journey through fear, disbelief, and ultimately a quest for understanding. With vivid detail and heartfelt emotions, Encounter at Hill City explores the complexities of encountering the unknown and the resilience in the face of unimaginable circumstances. I just
Cool.
knew to write that book after what happened. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
felt like I lost everything. I lost my family, lost my property, lost my farm because the divorce. She got everything. So I let her have everything. I didn't really care. But,
Yeah.
she took care of my kids on the farm. So I just said, whatever. But it ruined our life. I mean, a lot of people say it didn't do this or that bad to you. But for me, it was horrible because I lost my first marriage.
Hmm. So are you open for questions?
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it
Cool.
on.
So if you've got questions, you can do a couple things. Either use the reaction to raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or just say something in the chat that lets me know that you've got a question and I'll unmute you. You can talk directly to Kenny then. So
Okay, the experience that you had was preceded by a golden arm and hammer, an arm with what you called Thor's hammer in the sky. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what the cloud looked like. It was Thor's hammer holding his anvil up there.
The cloud looked like Thor's hammer. Okay,
Yeah.
was it anything like the Arm and Hammer logo?
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm going to remember that. Yes. Yes,
Was it?
actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
I
curious.
never
Just
thought.
okay. So did it look from the side, like you were holding it, like the logo holding it from the side? Okay,
Yep.
all right, good to know.
But Thor's hammer, you know what I mean? The lightning bolt going through the hand kind of thing.
that was an interesting question, Ivor. Is there a story behind that? I'm going to ask you to unmute. So
That's a good one, actually.
No, no, the thing is that I've had a number of experiences myself in which and I'll use the Greek term logos, meaning a symbol of some kind. And in this case, the Arm& and Hammer logo, but it might be, the Energizer Bunny. It might be any number of things, um, where I've experienced the ex the experience of that type of thing outside of normal reality. Um, so I was just curious if, in Ken's experience, if it was something similar. And apparently was something similar. So that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
cool, very cool. Yeah, if you got a question, raise your hand. Oh, yep. It looks like Roger wants to ask a question. So Roger, then Bill. Let's go to Roger first.
I thought it was interesting that you found yourself floating uh, in your room in your house, and the beam went off and you fell to the ground, into the floor. Now, if
Yep.
they put you all the way down to the ground and turned off the beam, your feet could have been in the floor. Just thought I'd make that observation.
What did you say about the feet, our feet on the floor?
Um, I said you became conscious of the fact that you were floating above the floor.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Okay. You were in a transport beam. You were
Yeah.
being beamed
Tractor beam.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tractor beam.
But it
Yeah.
makes you insubstantial. It makes your so you can pass through the walls and to the ceiling and then the top of the roof. And
Oh,
when you
yeah.
if you got into the
Yeah.
center of the room, you were floating and then let go because if you were if you were in the beam and put down on the floor, part of your foot would have probably become part of the wood of the floor. So
Okay, I
you were
get you.
dropped.
Yeah,
And when you were dropping, you became substantial again, solid.
yeah.
And if they'd let you down, you would have been stuck on the floor. I just
You know,
made that
that's funny.
observation, and
Yeah,
I've
you
been
know that's
beamed up several times.
right.
And
You know that's funny you say that because I've thought about it too. That when they first took us, I don't ever remember an alien coming out of the UFO and picking us up, you know, and carrying us into the UFO. I, I was literally frozen. I couldn't move when I was blocking out the light. I couldn't literally. I was frozen like that, and my eyes could barely move. I could just barely look around. And I at that point it goes black. I don't remember anything after that point. And literally it was a second later in my mind, like you were saying, that we were floating above the floor in my living room, and I felt like they had beamed us, like you're saying, they beamed us into the living room because they were holding us in that tractor beam.
the other thing too about that, you said in the car, you saw bright light all around you, and you saw
Hmm.
things, lights around you. Now, anything loose in the car would float up with you and be reflecting the light. So you would see things all around you that are reflecting light, and you can't tell what it is because they're so small, particles of dust or whatever. But the light being so intense would make them shine.
Yeah, I was
So
seeing diamonds like this floating gold. They were floating around in the light, in that beam of light. There was these gold diamonds all over the place, like this shape. They were just floating around in the air.
yeah, I I I agree with your descriptions of being beamed up and being down. It's logical to me.
Yeah.
I've had it happen to myself quite a few times. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go to Bill McNeff next.
Good
Name my
information.
buddy.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Bill, how you doing, bud?
Pretty good. Um, I've got three quantitative questions. How tall was the alien on the spacecraft, like the one who jumped on you?
I'd say about 4 foot tall.
Ah, okay. And what color was its skin?
Oh, that's a good one. It was like a brown, but it had this weird. You know how like snakes they have those kind of like scales that kind of reflect the light around on them?
Yes.
That's what it kind of had, a skin like that. It was really dark brown, but it had, like I said, it was, you could kind of see it reflecting in its skin.
Yes. Okay. And then the third one is, did you hear any audible speech from this creature, or any
No,
sounds? Did it make any sound?
no,
Like when you uh, prayed for it, when you spoke the name of Jesus and it
yep,
jumped off of you, did it make any kind of a sound then, kind of a yell or anything?
no. That's another thing. It was just quiet, but it just it made that face like, oh, you heard me kind of face. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
I
Okay.
swear it did. I still haven't heard one thing from him. It just made that face and it grabbed its side, and it looked like I just stabbed it right in the side. Good, you know.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, questions for Ken. Raise a hand or put something in the chat and I'll unmute you.
Does your wife have any recollection of anything that went on while she or the kids were with you?
Now that's a good one. I will tell you one thing. This really bugged me too. My family, I had to not write about them, not put them in the book because they basically were not helping me at all in the writing of this book. My wife is a very controlling kind of a woman when it came. She's ex-military like me too, so she kind of just kept it on the down low. She would not let the kids even talk about it. I've for years wanted to know what happened to them too. Their experiences of what happened, you know, and they were told they can't even talk to me about it. So only my daughter, she's been, at least I could talk to her about it, but she won't tell me what happened. But she knows I wrote my book and she's supportive, but she won't talk to me about it either.
Have you or anyone ever gone through hypnosis, or do you feel they may have been programmed not to talk about it or to talk about it?
The psychic lady hypnotized me. If I
Mhm.
remember correctly, I think she did hypnotize me, and that's why I finally have all this recollection of what happened. Because I did not have any recollection in my mind about being on that ship. I could only remember before and after. I could never remember it. And I think when she hypnotized me, she unlocked it all. I could remember it all now. That's why I wrote the book.
So the whole time you were on the craft, you weren't with your family. You weren't with your wife and kids then. You were all separate then?
No, no, I was with them all naked, remember, in that central chamber.
Okay.
Or at least it was so weird. I'm not lying. The weird way that chamber was, it was kind of like this, and then it went up to a little thing in the top on a vent, let's say. It went up to that, like this kind of shape. And it just totally reminded me of the shape of the UFO. I just felt like we were in the center of the UFO for some reason, that cell that we were in.
And you're not aware, you don't think ever been taken since?
Only that second time. And yeah, I haven't got no recollection after the second time they took me. I can't say they took me again, but I wouldn't put it past them. They pretty good at blanking out the mind, you know what I mean, that you can't remember it anyways.
Right,
Took me
right.
just to get to this point.
Any other questions for Ken? Well, yeah, I'll throw this.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, yes. What was the general shape of the UFO?
I got in my book, I actually draw it. I hope you can here, I'm gonna have to. All right, I just wanted to try
Let
and
me hold the book.
that camera right there. Can you see it?
Yeah, there's a
Yes,
parallel.
yes. Thank
That's
you.
the shape. That's a shape. And it
Got
was
it.
hiding, it was so polished chrome, I could see it all the way from the clouds all the way to where I was when I first saw it. It was twinkling. It had the sun just radiating on it,
And I'll throw this out, Ken, because you talked about you'd use the name of Christ to get it off of you. Had the very strange nose with the mucus coming out, all this stuff. A lot of it, as was crossing my mind, it sounds like some very atypical looking aliens. And I was thinking as you were talking, I was kind of going, boy, it almost sounds demonic. And I've heard, are ETs, are they demons? Are they biological entities? I heard different discussion on that. Do you have any, because it responded to Jesus Christ, and definitely didn't look appealing by our standards. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any opinions on that at all?
No, I'm gonna tell you that's a good one that you just said that because basically I'm a Christian, okay, and my family is and my aunts and uncles all are and everything like that. Well, when I told the story to my aunt Alice, she right away, that's the first thing she had said was, this sounds like they were demonic, because she said to be inflicted by the name of Jesus Christ means they were to her. She said, you sure that you weren't abducted by demons? And I said, well, I don't think so. They look, unless demons look like an alien, then, to me, it was an alien. Do I think the Bigfoot sightings is related? No, I think it's just two different things. Although I have thought about this, that maybe having that gift is why he showed himself to me, the Bigfoot, if that helps answer that question.
Which gift?
The being an empath.
And that when you say that, that makes me wonder, maybe it's because you're an empath. He didn't show himself to you, but you just saw him anyways, and that he really pissed him off.
Yeah, okay. I could go with that story.
Wow.
Just a thought, but
Well, I've heard on other shows too that they can actually put themselves invisible. And the younger Sasquatch, I guess, in order to this is a story amongst the Alaskans. They say that in order for the young ones to become an adult, they have to go through this thing where they turn themselves invisible, and you have to walk right up to us humans, and then like a dare, and then walk away and prove that you can do the invisible thing. Just a story I heard.
more questions for Kenny. Any more questions for Kenny? Well, hearing none, we're coming close on 4:30, so I think we should probably wrap it up. Kenny, any final thoughts or anything you want to share with us? Or if you got questions, this is your last chance for question. But Kenny, anything you want to say before you take off?
I think we've said it all pretty good. I can answer any questions, so it's been pretty good. All I know is that experience. I guess I'd say I'm thankful in a weird way, that I've had that experience, because it allowed me to write a book, something I would never do in my life. I
Right.
hated reading books and I hated writing books, so I was glad that it at least pushed me to do. What do you think they did? What they did? Oh, like abducting us? That's a good question, I guess. Okay, I'll put it like this. I think it's a horrible thing that our government has. I hope I can talk about this.
Sure.
I do believe that our government has shaken hands with the UFO people, like they said, the aliens. They've shaken hands with them and have set up this contract where they get technology from the aliens, and in return, the aliens, for some wonderful reason, they got to abduct us, and that's the contract I do believe that they have with them. And also, just like I heard on another show, I think that's why Kennedy was killed. He said he was one day away from coming out and telling all of America about the aliens.
And Joe says you can contact him if you want more info on Bigfoot. So,
Oh, all right. I joined the Bigfoot Research Center up in northern Minnesota because they came to my MUFON, and I
Mhm.
met the main guy over there, and he wanted me to tell him my story, so I told him my story. And he was a pretty cool guy. I can't remember what his name was. Do you remember?
Mm-mm.
I got him on my Facebook.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kenny. Certainly appreciate it.
Anytime.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Kenny. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. We certainly appreciate that too. So now next month I'm not going to be here. I think Jer's hosting, but our speakers will be Bill DiPaolo talking about a UAP detector, so it should be really good. So hope you enjoy that. I'll check out the video once once Jer gets that posted. But well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a part of Minnesota MUFON. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of each other, and I'll see you in December. I won't be here next month, but I'll see you in December. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.